Thanks a lot for having me on this Zoom event. And allow me to introduce myself. My name is Menachem Etkin, and I am 63 years old, father to 4 children and 4 grandchildren, and I live in Israel. And I'm a second generation to a father who was a Holocaust survivor. He was the sole survivor of a very big family of 25 members. His name is Michael Etkin, and he is my hero. And he is actually the hero of this story. And the main message which I would like to convey in this story is to never give up. This was a lesson which my father taught us always. During the next 45 minutes, I will mention in a nutshell the 2 books which I had published. Then I will tell you the entire story in which I will emphasize the heroism and the resistance in the Holocaust, which was very important for my father to emphasize it. And I will show you some photos of our roots trip, which we did to Belarus, where it all happened. We did it in October 2009, so that you can see all of those places which I will be speaking about. And we'll leave some time at the end for questions and answers. This photo was taken in January of 2006, when the first book in Hebrew was born. You see here my parents, my father Michael, who passed away in 2009, and my mother Rivka, and my wife Mazal, and myself. But let's leave it for 1 minute and we'll come back to this photo in a minute. I would like to tell you that most of the Holocaust survivors did not speak out. They did not tell their story, not even to their families, because these are very painful stories. However, I was lucky enough that my father, who was also a teacher, it was very important for him to tell his story. And he was going to schools and telling it in many schools throughout Israel. He was interviewed on TV, in radio stations, in newspapers. And he spoke and spoke for many years. He did it for many, many years. Then he became sick about 6 months before this picture was taken, and he could not continue to speak about it. So at this point in time, I decided that I must take this torch, if you will, and continue with this to keep his legacy and to continue speaking about it in front. I'm doing it since 2006 in front of thousands of students in Israel and the soldiers in Israel. And I plan to do it until the last day of my life because it's very, very important for me. Then I decided to publish the book with this story, and I worked on it for 2 years until we published the Hebrew version of it. And then I translated the book to English for English readers worldwide, so that as many people as possible can read it. And I sent both of the books, as I mentioned before the call, I sent both books to all of the Holocaust museums worldwide, so that they will be there forever in their libraries. And after that, my brother helped me, and he put both of the books on the web. So anybody can read it. You just Google, you find the book, you can read it online. And well, this became the project of my life, actually. So now, with this small introduction, we can start the story itself. Well, the story begins when these 2 nice twins were born. On the left is my father, Michael, and his twin brother, Haim. They were born in December of 1932. And I mentioned the fact here that Michael was the naughty one. My father always told us that he testified about himself, that he was the naughty one. You will see, you will see that this characteristic will be very, very significant later on in this story. These are the parents. They are my grandparents. Eva Kaminska Etkin, she was the brave Jewish partisan. I will speak about it later on. And my grandfather, Menachem Mendel, I am named after him. They lived in a very small town, which is called Krulevshchizna in Belarus. Here's a photo, one of the photos which survived the Holocaust. We have very few photos who succeeded to survive the Holocaust. This is one of them. You see the family in front of their house. Eva here, and Menachem Mendel and the twins. This small shtetl, they call it in Yiddish, it's a small town. It's in the north part of Belarus. I will show you the map of Belarus in a minute so you can understand exactly the location. Where is Belarus located inside Europe, and where is our region where it all happened? And they were a very wealthy family. Why was that? Because they owned the flour mill and the sawmill in this town. Remember that we are talking about a period almost 90 years ago, and who owned the flour mill or the sawmill, they were very wealthy. They sold flour to the entire region. About the sawmill, my grandfather, Menachem Mendel, was a wood merchant. This country, Belarus, is full of huge forests. You can travel there for miles and you see only forests. So he would travel with his wagon and a horse, and he would buy a piece of a forest. Now he can cut the woods, bring them via the train to this small town, and in the sawmill, they would cut those trees and they would sell it for building houses and for building furniture. But he was not only rich, he was also a philanthropist. During his travels with his wagon, when he saw a poor family, he would take out some money of his pockets and donate it to this poor family. And not just to Jewish families, to every family which he saw a poor family, he donated money to them. So I am mentioning these facts because it will also be very significant later on in my speech. And Eva, she was a nurse at the Glubokie hospital. Glubokie is a city which is located about 14 kilometers from our town, and she was working there as a nurse. This is the map of Belarus, which got its independence in 1991. Before that, this country was part of the Soviet Union. And during the time of the war, it did not exist at all. The borders were totally different. Some parts of it belonged to Poland, some parts of it belonged to Russia. The capital city is here in the middle, it's called Minsk, and our area is in the north where you see it's written Glubokie. I will call it Glubokie as the locals call it during my lecture, Glubokie or Glubokie. This is where it all happens. You see that Belarus is surrounded by Poland, Ukraine, Russia, Latvia, and Lithuania. This is the house of the family. We succeeded to find during our road trip. We came to Krulevshchizna and we searched for 2 days for the house of the Etkin family. Now, as you can see, it's a school, it's a conservatorium, a school for teaching children to play musical instruments. You see the symbols here, there's a symbol of guitar here. We had a meeting with the mayor of this small town. Now it's already 2,000 people living there. And we asked her to make meetings for us with the 3 oldest ladies who are living in this town, because we thought that maybe the oldest ladies will remember the Etkin family. And indeed, one of them remembered the Etkin family. She brought us to this house and told us, this is the house of the Etkin family. She also took us to the place where the sawmill and the flour mill were standing. Now it's an empty field. And we succeeded to find the house of the family.
Amazing.
This is another photo of the family in 1935. And you can see Eva standing here on the left side. You see the grandparents. They are Menachem Mendel's parents. You see some uncles and aunts. And down here in the middle are the twins, my father Michael and his brother, and 2 other cousins, which I will speak about them later on, from the Hodosh family. And as I mentioned before, Eva worked as a nurse at the Glubokie hospital, which is 14 kilometers from their town. So she was taking a train every day to the hospital, working there, and in the evening coming back to the town to take care of her children. This is another photo which survived. It seems to me that this is like a Shabbat dinner. On Friday evening, we have a habit of doing a kiddush. It's called in Hebrew, which is the blessing of the wine. You can see the wine here. So the family is gathering in the grandparents' house, and some uncles and aunts are here. Eva is here on the right side, holding the twins in her hands. Well, on March 1941, there's a tragedy at the Etkin family, and my grandfather, Menachem Mendel, he managed the entire family businesses. He was one of 8 children, and his father noticed that this son has very good sense for business. So he nominated him to manage the entire business of the Etkin family. And unfortunately, he passed away at a very young age of 32 due to a lethal blood infection, which was caused by a tooth extraction. Probably the dentists of this time did not have such good instruments as they do today. And the family took him to the best doctors in the area. And they gave him some medicine, but nothing helped. Nowadays, this cannot happen because we have antibiotics. And at that time, the antibiotics was not even invented yet. So unfortunately, he passed away. And now Eva stays alone with the kids. We will see very soon how she solved this problem. And I wrote here that rumors about the Nazis' actions against the Jews in Poland are arriving. Let me elaborate a little bit about this sentence. As you probably know, the war broke out in Poland in September of 1939 with the Nazis' invasion into Poland. Because in Poland, there were 3 million Jews, and they wanted to kill all of the Jews in Poland. They started burning synagogues, putting them in ghettos, and making many restrictions upon the Jews. And some Jews are succeeding to escape from Poland, and they arrive in the territories of the Soviet Union. Some of them are also arriving in our region and coming to the town of Krulevshchizna and telling what is happening to the Jews in Poland. So the family is debating about maybe we should leave our home, our nice home, the big home we have here, the good business, and let's leave everything and escape north to the direction of Siberia. The Nazis will not arrive in Siberia because there are no Jews over there, and it's very cold, and the Nazi army will not be able to handle this cold weather in Siberia. They have no reason to come there. Let's escape there. But the final decision, unfortunately, was to stay at home. We have a good life here, so we will stay at home. This is a photo of the entrance to the all Jewish cemetery in Glubokie, where my father, Menachem Mendel, is buried over there, and his father as well, they're buried over there. And we try to search. You see, it says here, Old Jewish Cemetery destroyed by the Nazis. And we tried to search for the graves, but we couldn't find anything because the Nazis really destroyed this cemetery. And there was no fence. There was no fence around it for many years. And some cows and horses were going through this place and ruining the rest of the tombstones over there. We couldn't find any tombstone which mentions the name Etkin. So we just over here, there is a general tombstones for the Jews of Glubokie. We lit a candle. It's a habit, it's a tradition in the Jewish tradition to light a candle for the soul of the people who passed away. And we said the prayer. We have a prayer which is called the Kaddish when a person passes away. We said it here and we continued our trip in Belarus. Here is how Eva solved her problem. She brings her sister Leah, who lived in a very close town, to help her with the twins when she is working in the hospital. And indeed, what they were afraid of really happened, and the Nazis are arriving. On June 22nd of 1941, the Barbarossa operation breaks out with the Nazis' invasion into the Soviet Union territories. And my second trip to Belarus was in June 2011, which me and 2 of my brothers, we joined a group of 54 people from Israel, whose origin of the parents is from Belarus. We traveled there and we made the March of the Living in Minsk, the capital city, which is 70 years after this invasion. We marched for 2 kilometers in the heart of Minsk with lots of media covering it, and it was very impressive. Here you see Eva on the right and her older sister Leah standing in the snow in Belarus. Well, and the Nazis arrive in our town in Krulevshchizna on August of 1941. And two armed Nazi soldiers enter into the Etkin family house, and they tell the family, you have 1 hour to pack a bag. Put in the bag whatever you want, and then get on the truck which is waiting for you in the main square of the town. And they didn't tell them nothing. Where are they taking them? And if they will ever get back to their town and see their house again, nothing. Just pack a bag and get on the truck. They have no option. They pack a bag and they get on the truck, and they are being taken with the truck to the Glubokie ghetto. The truck is traveling 14 kilometers, and they took them to the ghetto. And into this ghetto, the Nazis populated 8,000 Jews from all the towns in this region and from Glubokie, which was the biggest city in this region. They put them in this ghetto, which was surrounded by a fence. And lucky for them, the fence was made of simple wood only. There were other ghettos which the fence was made of a brick wall. For example, in the Warsaw ghetto in Poland, there was a brick wall. But here it was made of simple wood, and it was very easy to break it. They were living in this ghetto for 2 years until August of 1943. During those 2 years, the Nazis made 3 actions in which they murdered 3,000 Jews, and they buried them in 3 mass graves. In a minute, I will show you those 3 mass graves. And look how they lived. They had such a wonderful big house. Over here, they got a small room, 4 people living in a small room, Eva and Leah and the twins, Michael and Haim. There are only 2 beds in this small room. They have to manage somehow. So Eva, she said, I don't need a bed. I can sleep on the floor. She gave 1 bed to her sister Leah and the other bed to her twins. They live in starvation for these 2 years. The Nazis gave them some coupons for a small amount of weekly food. So they were starving. Some people died of starvation and of diseases in the ghettos. So in order not to starve, they were collecting, for example, potato peels from the Nazis' garbage to make some soup out of it. They would bring those peels at home to their room and ask their mother or their aunt to mix it with some water, and you get some kind of a soup out of it. Other people were sneaking out of the ghetto at night to steal some vegetables from the nearby villages, and this way to survive. This is one of the mass graves. It says here in Hebrew that the memory will never be forgotten, and the pain will also never be removed. And the same in Russian. You see here the hand of a photographer. We were all the time surrounded by reporters and photographers in our road trip. They made articles about it. It was very, very interesting for them, a family coming from Israel and making such an investment in a road trip in Belarus. This is another mass grave in Glubokie. This is the front side of it. This is me and my wife, Mazal. And this is the back side of it. This is me and my brother, Haim. Notice that my brother is called Haim after the twin brother of my father. And we are reading here the Kaddish, this prayer after the people who passed away. And we got a permission from the municipality to put this plaque, which you see here, on, to glue it into the monument with the names. Here you see all of the names of the members of the Etkin family who were killed in the ghetto in Glubokie. And this is the 3rd mass grave inside the forest. These are the trees, which I told you, the typical trees. They are called, I think it's called in English, the birch trees. In Russian, it's called, I forgot the word. I think in English, it's birch trees. They are very tall. And this is a mass grave inside the forest. A few months after they were living in this ghetto, Eva heard that the partisans in the forest, they need nurses and doctors to take care of the injured fighters in the partisan. So she said, I'm a nurse, I'm volunteering. And she left her twins in the ghetto with her sister Leah to take care of them. And she serves as a medical nurse in the October Partisans Brigade in the huge forest of North Belarus in the region of Dokshitsy and Glubokie, and fighting against the Nazis and taking care of the injured partisans. By the way, the origin of the Etkin family was from Dokshitsy, and the origin of the Kaminska family, Eva's family, was from Glubokie. Okay? During the time in the ghetto, the Nazis were taking every once in a while groups of Jews to work outside the ghetto in an ammunition warehouse, and the Jews were working there the whole day, in the evening coming back to the ghetto. But those smart Jews thought about, let's steal some weapons. Every once in a while, they stole only one item out of this warehouse so that the Nazis will not notice it. One day they stole a pistol, hid it in their coat and bring it to the ghetto. Another time they stole a grenade and brought it into the ghetto. And so little by little, they had some weapons in the ghetto in case that one day, maybe they will need it. But not all of the weapons stays in the ghetto. Some of it is being smuggled to the partisans in the forests because they need weapons also. And Eva also smuggled weapons. She would come every once in a while into the ghetto at night, okay? And she would say hello to her twins and her sister. She would take a grenade, for example, put it in her coat and smuggle it to the partisans in the forest. And some other partisans did it as well. Now, in June of 1943, the Nazis start to eliminate all of the ghettos in Belarus by burning them and shooting all over in order to kill all of the Jews in those ghettos. But the Jews in this ghetto, they decided, hey, we have weapons here. We will not go like sheep into slaughter. We will be brave. We will make an uprising here with the weapons we have. So this uprising broke on August 13th of 1943, and it lasts for a week. There are fightings inside the ghetto between the Jews and the Nazis. And after a week, on August 20th of 1943, the Nazis brought tanks and positioned them around three sides of the ghetto. There were no tanks positions in the forest side of the ghetto. And those tanks are firing fire bombs into the ghetto. It is 6 o'clock in the morning. Fire is starting, and the ghetto is starting to burn. And also they had machine guns, which were firing all over in order to kill as many Jews as possible. So some of the Jews were starting to break the ghetto's wooden fence, kicking it and breaking it, and start running towards the near forest, which is 2 kilometers away from the ghetto. Whoever will succeed to reach the forest, he or she will save their lives. And now the ghetto is burning. And imagine Aunt Leah is standing there with the twins, holding their hands. They are about 20 meters from the broken fence of the ghetto, and the twins are just 11 years old. Try to imagine, what will you be doing in such a situation? I don't know what I would have done in such a terrible situation. And my father, Michael, tells his aunt that they must run away from there and try to reach the forest. There are partisans in the forest. But Aunt Leah says, no, don't run. We are staying here together. And probably Michael understood at this moment that this might be the last moment in which he can save his life. So remember that he was the naughty one. And he said, so what if my Aunt Leah tells me not to run? I am running in order to save my life. And he disconnects his arm from his aunt's grip and runs through the broken fence of the ghetto towards the forest. And he's running, and he had a coat which he felt it was heavy. He threw the coat away so that he can run faster just to reach. His aim is dashed to reach the forest. And the Nazis' machine guns are firing all over, including they're firing at the people who are running in the open field, trying to reach the forest. But one bullet hit Michael's foot, and he kept running as long as he had the power to do it, but he collapsed in the open field after passing almost all of the 2 kilometers, but after 1.5 kilometers, he fell in the field, lying there and hoping that maybe someone will come and help him. And indeed, this angel came. His name was Motke Kraut, and he saw a child lying there in the field. He picked him up and carried him on his back into the forest, where the partisans can try to take care of the injury in his foot. But it was very, very infected, and they did not have such good means of medicine to take care of it. So Motke decided that he must keep on saving the life of this child. He will not let him die of this infection. And he takes him by the hand, and they are walking in the forest. And they see a house. I saw it until today when I was there. There's a house in the forest. Family is living there. They're knocking on the door, and a nice couple opens the door and says, "Yes, what do you want here?" So Motke tells them, "This child is Menachem Mendel Etkin's son, and he escaped from the ghetto and he is injured. Would you mind taking care of him until his injury will heal? And then I will come and I will take him back to the partisans." And they immediately agreed to take him despite the risk of doing it. They took a huge risk upon themselves, because if the Nazis would find a family who is keeping a Jewish child, they would immediately kill this family and the child. And probably one day in the past, Menachem Mendel donated money also to this poor family, and they felt that they must take care of his child. So they took care of him. But the Nazis were searching for survivors from this ghetto. And indeed, there were survivors. There were 400 survivors. Out of the 8,000 Jews of this ghetto, only 400 succeeded to survive, and my father was one of them. And 2 Nazi soldiers arrived at this house and searched all of the rooms in it. And my father was lying in a bed behind the curtain. One of these Nazi soldiers pulls away this curtain and he sees the boy on the bed. He asked this couple, "Who is this boy?" So the lady said, "It's our son, and he is very sick, and the doctor said not to get near him." And it was a well-known fact that is in this area during these days, there was a disease called typhus, and everybody knew it. The Nazis looked at this child for a minute, and they said in German, "Gut," and left the house. And so they saved my father's life, and of course their life as well. And then after about 2 months of healing, Motke came. He thanked them very much for taking care of my father, and he took my father back to the partisans in the forest. And in the partisans, children at this age of 12, 13, they were helping with different maintenance tasks in the camp. And one fact which my father mentions in his book, that one day he remembers that the partisans took a few of the children, he was one of them, to help them to carry some explosives. They went to put those explosives under a railroad which crossed over a bridge. They knew that a train full of Nazi soldiers should have been passing there at night. And they put those explosives under the railroad. And when the train passed, they blew it up and the train fell off the bridge and all of the Nazi soldiers got killed. And this is one example of what the brave partisan fighters did fighting against the Nazis in the forests. One day when he is in the Partisan Brigade, he receives a letter on a very dirty piece of brown paper from his mother. His mother heard, there were rumors passing by the Partisan Brigade. She heard that one of her twins succeeded to survive the burning ghetto of Glubokie. She didn't know which one of her sons survived, but she knew that one of them survived, and she wrote a letter, and this letter was passing by the different group of the Partisan Brigade and reached him. And she writes to him, "I heard that you have survived the ghetto, and please be a good boy. And I am in another forest, okay, in this region, and I hope that one day we will meet." And he wanted to live the camp of the partisans and to search for her all over those huge forests. But the partisans prevented him from leaving the camp because the Nazis are still in this area and it's very dangerous for him. If they will catch him, they will kill him. And Michael searches for his mother. In July of 1944, the Red Army, which is the Russian army, they defeat the Nazis and they withdraw from the Soviet Union. And now Michael can start searching for his mother by trains from town to town. He finds people and he asks them, do you have any knowledge about Eva Chava Etkin Kaminsky? No. Everybody tells him, we didn't hear anything about her. But in one town, somebody told him that his uncle Tana Chodosh and his two sons, Zelig and Herschel, they escaped from the ghetto before the Nazis burned the ghetto, and they are now living in the small town which is called Kurinietz. They told him, go to Kurinietz and you will find your uncle there. So he goes there with the train, he finds his uncle, and the uncle is so happy that one of the Etkin family survived. He tells him, stay with us here. So he stays with them for a few days. All of a sudden, he has a normal home. He has a normal shower to take a shower. In the Partisans, when he was there, there is no shower. If you wanted to take a shower, you would go to the nearest river or lake and take a bath over there. Belarus is full of rivers and lakes. He has a bed to sleep, a normal bed to sleep on it. In the Partisans, there was no bed. They were sleeping on the ground, okay? He has a normal house and normal food, but he told his uncle, I cannot stay with you anymore. I must keep searching for my dear beloved mother. And he keeps searching by trains. And one day, when he's searching, he's on a train. He met a soldier who sat beside him on the train. And this soldier probably served in the Partisans together with Eva in the same brigade. And he heard from her the stories about her red-haired twins. The twins had red hair. And he saw a red-haired boy. So he asked him, are you Eva Etkin's son? He says, yes, I'm her son. I'm looking for her. Tell me, where is my mother? And probably this soldier did not really have the courage to tell the truth to this small boy, what really happened to his mother. So he just told him, your mother was a hero. And Michael didn't understand, why did he say was? Why did he use the past tense? And then on the next station, the soldier went off the train and waved goodbye to Michael. And Michael did not find any clue about his mother, so he returns to Kurinietz, to his uncle Tana Chodosh and his sons, stays with them for a while, and then Tana tells Michael that he is planning to leave and to go to America. If you want, Michael, you can come with us to America, or you can immigrate alone by yourself to Israel via the Jewish Agency. The Jewish Agency was an organization who collected the Jewish orphans who were alone in the world and helped them to come to Israel. And Michael decided that he wants to go to Israel. He wants to live in Israel. He heard a lot of stories about Israel and he liked it and he wanted to go to the Jewish state. So the Jewish Agency took them, those many orphans, to the Fernwald DP camp in South Germany. DP stands for Displaced Persons. The American Army, together with the UN, they built DP camps in the south of Germany, which was in the control of the American Army. And they had a very good life in those DP camps. They had a school. In the ghetto, there was no schools. They were not allowed. The Jewish children were not allowed to study anything. Here they have a school. They had some cultural life. They had really good life in the DP camp for a few months. And then from there, they took them to the Marseille port in the south of France. And over there, he boarded the Shampolion ship together with another 2,000 orphans from the Holocaust. And they were taking the cruise, very old ships, traveling to the direction of Israel. And they are arriving in April 1946, arriving to the Haifa port. This is the biggest port in Israel. They arrive over there. And then my father was sent to study in an agricultural school. for 4 years. He was 14 years old when he arrived in Israel. And then he served in the Israeli army for 2 years. Then he went to study to be a physical education teacher at the Wingate Institute in Israel. And he was a physical education teacher all his life. Later on, he also was teaching also English and geography. And on August 20th of 1956, he married my mother, Rivka. This is a picture from their wedding day. And August 20th is a very significant date in our family. Because if you remember, on August 20th of 1943, this is the date on which the ghetto was burning. And he ran away from the ghetto and he saved his life. And on the very same date, he got married with my mother. And I was born 1 year afterwards, in August of 1957. I am the oldest son. We are 5 sons, and I am the oldest one. Why did I call the book Despite Everything I Won? Because this is the winning. My father has 5 sons. Remember, he was alone in the world, the only survivor of the entire broad Etkin family. 5 sons, 13 grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren. Look at this picture. This picture was taken when at my father's 70 years birthday. We made a surprise party for him. And it was very, very exciting. It was a great party, and he was so happy. This is 7 years before he passed away. He passed away at the age of 77 in February of 2009. Now I can tell you what happened with Eva. My father searched for her all of his life in every possible way, in the press, in radio. There was a daily radio broadcast in Israel for many years for people, Holocaust survivors, which are searching for relatives from the Holocaust. And he made phone calls all over the world, trying to search what happened with his mother. And when they opened an embassy of Belarus in Israel, my father wrote a letter to the ambassador of Belarus in Israel, asking him to search in the archives in Belarus. Maybe there is some data about what happened to the medical unit of Eva, of the October Brigade. And it took a long time until the letter came back with the answer, telling that Eva's medical unit was captured by the Nazis in the forests. They were tortured and hanged in Dokshitsi in June 1944, which is 2 weeks before the end of the war in the Soviet Union. She was a very young lady of only 31 years old. We have no idea where the Nazis buried her, but we know that she was hanged in the square of Dokshitsi. And a few months before we went to our trip, we decided that we must erect a memorial monument in the Jewish cemetery of Dokshitsi. And I started working on it. I had made contact with a person in the United States who knows someone in Belarus who does these kind of things. And I contacted him and I sent him the script which I want to be written on this memorial monument in 3 languages, in Hebrew and in Russian and in English. You can see it. And here we are, me and my wife Mazal and my son Eyal on the left, and my brother Haim and his wife Tali. And when we arrived over there, it was already erected there. And we made a very honorable ceremony with lots of photographers and newspaper journalists around us, taking photos and writing articles about it, and representatives of the local municipality and the regional government of this region. And in the back of it, I also glued the names of the rest of the Etkin family, like you saw before, which were perished in the Holocaust. This was one of my father's dreams, to erect some kind of a monument for his dear beloved mother. And we accomplished this dream. One other dream of my father was to come to the Glubokie hospital and to ask them to place a plaque with her photograph so that people will know that she was a nurse working in this hospital. So we had a meeting with the mayor of Glubokie, and we asked him to make a meeting for us with the director of this hospital. And here we met with this lady who is the director of this hospital. And we gave her this plaque, okay? And you can see it now, this is enlarged, you can see. She promised to hang it in a central location of the hospital. It's written in Hebrew, in English, and in Russian, a few words about Eva Kaminska Etkin, who was a very brave Jewish partisan who fought against the Nazis in the forests of Belarus. And we also have a Facebook page, which you can go there and see lots of materials about it. Most of them is indeed in Hebrew, but some of them is also in English. For example, you can see an interview which I gave to in English, which I gave to an international TV station last year on this date of January 27th, which is the International Holocaust Remembrance Day. You can see this interview, it's very interesting. Lots of documentation over there. And with that, that's the end of my presentation. And I will be very glad to answer any of your questions if I can. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Well, thank you so much, Menachem. This is an amazing story. And it's one of many of these people. There are so many more for all the people that we know about. With you sharing your story, there are hundreds, if not thousands of others that we'll never hear from. We'll never know of their amazing courage. So it's amazing. To me, I have a tear in my eye. It's just incredible that the way you've been able to memorialize your family. And basically, they're representative of all of them that fought.
Right, I fully agree.
In the forest.
Right.
So it's a beautiful thing you've done.
Thank you very much.
We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So if anyone has
any questions
or maybe from the students, I will try to answer them.
I am always in awe and touched very deeply at how the Jews managed to survive. And it is indeed a work of love that you have done this to honor your family. Thank you for doing it.
Sure, you're welcome. I appreciate it very much. You know, there are families in which no one succeeded to survive, and there is no one to tell their stories. We were lucky enough that my father was the only one who succeeded to survive.
Incredible.
Menachem, where do you live now?
I live in Ramat Gan. It's a city in Israel which is very close to Tel Aviv.
I see.
Yeah.
Menachem, someone who couldn't be on the call today submitted a question about the partisan commander that your father served under. Do you have any information about, was his name Rokosovsky?
Rokosovsky, yes. I only know that this brigade was named the Rokosovsky Brigade, and it is after the commander of this brigade. That's right.
Okay. Did your father have any contact with him, or do you have any information?
I don't think so. He was only a child at 11, 12 years old. Mm-hmm. So I don't think so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Usually the children in those camps were assigned work within the camp, collecting firewood, help building defenses, that kind of thing, and try to limit their role as combat participants. But having him helping to carry explosives to blow up a railroad was actually very common. And it always amazes me, at the age of 12 or 13, I was trying to make the baseball team. And here these people were fighting for their very lives. It's just incredible.
That's right.
Amazing courage.
Right.
I think it's also important to note that I myself have interviewed many survivors, and they always touch you. They always grab your hand or grab your arm, and they say, wow, now you've touched me. I'm a survivor, so now you're a witness. Go and tell our story. And
That's right.
I really appreciate you doing that. It's so important that we continue to tell that story and to let them never be forgotten.
That's right. And when I tell this story in schools, and I know the children tell me that now they are going home and they will tell the story to their brothers and sisters and to their parents. And so the story flows on and on to many, many people.
Amen.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Haim, it's Andy from the UK. Can you hear me?
Sure, Andy, I can hear you. I'm glad that you're here, Andy.
My good friend, it's lovely. I want to tell you that myself and my daughter have been listening to this, and one thing I want to say is that her view of history, and she's going to study history at university, was that history is written by the victors, but something that she's learned from what she's heard today is that actually the true history is written by the survivors.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
I fully agree. Exactly.
And thank you for making that true to her.
Sure. Sure. And maybe one day when we can, when we're after this pandemic, and she will go to study history, and if they would like to invite me to give such a presentation face to face to all of the students in her university, I will be very glad to come fully voluntarily to give a presentation to those students.
Well, thank you, Menachem. She's going to Oxford University, and I'm sure they'd be proud to have you present to their union on your family's experiences. Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
You bring great honor to your family
Menachem?
by doing that.
Thank you very much. Yes, please.
I personally grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania, Bradford, and I don't ever remember there being prejudices and division. Maybe it was because of my parents, but my best friend was little Linda Halpern, and she was Jewish, and it didn't matter to me. I didn't even know. But I'm 77 now, and I'm very, very worried about the divisiveness in America right now, and supremacists and so
That's
on.
right.
It's very, very dangerous.
I fully agree with you. And in the first chapter of this book, my father described also such a wonderful life they had in this small town of Krulevshchizna. There were 200 families, of which 100 families were Jewish, and the other 100 families were Christian locals, and they had a wonderful life together, like you're describing in your town.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Menachem,
Yes.
do you have any information
Menachem?
Yes.
about the man who saved your father, Motke? Do you have any information about him?
Yes, I met Motke later on in Israel. We are making the yearly remembrance day for our community of Glubokie. So many years ago, I met him, and my father met with him. He told me that this is the person who saved his life. He passed away. He passed away many years ago, and I am going every year to visit his grave in the Holon Cemetery in Israel, and I am thanking him for saving my father's life. I'm doing it every year.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Menachem, I'm also from a small town in Pennsylvania, northwestern Pennsylvania. I wondered if you've had the occasion to come to the United States.
Well, yes, I've been many times in the United States. Actually, when I was 10 years old, we lived for a year in Kent, Ohio. My father studied there in Kent State University. That was way back in 66 until 67. He planned to study there for 3 years, but then in 1967, the Six-Day War broke out in Israel, and my father, who was a very local patriot, he thought that he would save Israel. He said, there's a war in Israel, we must go back to Israel as fast as possible. So we packed up and we came back to Israel, and he stopped his studies after 1 year. This was when I was a small child, but then I came again for many times. We have relatives in California who are living there. We visit them, they visit us. And 3 years ago, when I was 60 years old, my family asked me, what do I want as a present for 60 years old? So I told them I want to make a big trip with the entire family, with all of us, to the United States. And we made a very big trip. It was great in the States. And I hope to come again. After this pandemic, I really want to come again. Yeah.
Very nice. You're always welcome.
Thank you very much.
What a story.
Menachem,
Yes.
Menachem, it's Bob Gold married to your cousin Brenda,
Yes.
and we're in
hi,
Central
Bob.
Florida now, and it's about
Sure.
15 years since we visited you in Israel.
Yes, I remember very well your visit in Israel, and we had this very nice dinner at the hotel you were in Haifa when my father was in the
Yes.
hospital after he had a stroke. You remember that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
Sure.
very,
Yes.
very much so.
He,
Yes.
he came out of the hospital to be with us.
Right. I took him out of the hospital. We got a permission from the doctor to take
Yeah.
him out of the hospital, especially for this dinner with you at the hotel. Sure.
It
Yes.
was very, very meaningful to hear the story again.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Tודה רבה.
Bevakasha. That's in Hebrew for
Menachem?
everyone.
Speaking of that, I have a question too. I'm their daughter, but I was wondering, did you have any information about the couple that that Motke left them with? Did you ever find out who they were?
Well, that's a very good thanks for the question, Lainey. I tried to ask my father during the years, does he remember their names? Because you know what I wanted to do? I wanted to go to Yad Vashem. Everybody knows what is Yad Vashem?
Yes.
No.
Yes? Okay. I wanted to go to Yad Vashem in Jerusalem and ask them to give the accreditation for this couple as the righteous among, you know this term, the righteous among the nations?
Yes.
Okay. They deserve to get this title because they saved a Jewish child.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But my father, he was under the trauma of the war. He did not remember the name of this couple. And I did, furthermore, when we were in our road trip in Belarus, I gave 2 lectures in 2 high schools over there, one high school in Dokshitsi and one high school in Glubokie, in front of 100 students in each one of them. And then those reporters were sitting in the front row. And I asked them, please put in your articles that I am searching for such a couple who saved my father. Maybe someone remembers it. Maybe they told the story onwards and maybe their children or grandchildren heard the story. I would like to find them. So I did my best and with my phone number to contact me. But nobody had contacted me since. But I really did my best to find them.
That's a shame because they do deserve that designation as righteous among the nations. It's
Right.
incredible.
Definitely, yeah.
They definitely risked everything. There were many those that did try to help and did try to rescue Jews. There were others that would turn them away. But there were quite a few that you were right when your presentation, they risked everything. They would have killed their whole family and everybody around them just for helping one little Jewish boy. It's just incredible that I'm amazed at this story that he survived. It's just incredible.
Right, right. It's an amazing survival story.
It is.
You know, coming back to the book, you know, once I asked my father to come and tell the story in my daughter's school. I live in Ramat Gan, my parents live in the north, it's about 1.5 hour drive. And he, of course, he immediately agreed and he came and he told the story in her class. And the principal of the school was there as well, listening to the story, and I videotaped it. It's also on YouTube. And at the end of this, my father's speech, the principal of the school came to us and she told us, hey guys, you have an amazing story here. Why don't you publish a book about it? So yeah, I told her, I'm thinking about it for a long time already, but I have no idea how to start such a project. And she actually gave me a name of a writer, a wonderful person in Israel, who already wrote a couple of books like that. And I contacted him, and this way we started to work on it. and we worked on it for 2 years. It was 2 years of very hard work until I succeeded to publish the first book in Hebrew.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful.
I'm going to put a link to your book in the chat box if everyone wants to look at it.
Great. Thank you very much.
Menachem, I have another question.
Sure.
Did Michael ever see or know, or was there ever any attempt to reunite any of the people who survived the ghetto with him?
Well, actually, yes. The people who live in Israel, okay, who succeeded to survive from the Glubokie ghetto, they were meeting once a year at this date, the Hebrew date of August 20th. You know, we have a Hebrew calendar, and we are doing the memorials at the Hebrew dates. So once a year, we would make a memorial service and all of those people who succeeded to survive from the Glubokie ghetto, they were meeting, and then us together, the second generation, and now we also bring the third generation to those memorial days, and we meet together.
Good.
And we say a prayer, sure, every year.
Amazing.
Wonderful.
Menachem, it's Andy again. Hi, I've got a question for you, and it's about the times that we're living in now, compared to the times that your father was living in. How forgiving was he? What was his attitude to his oppressors? Because we live in a very strange society nowadays. How did he feel? How did he react over his lifetime to what happened in his younger years?
Well, thank you for the question, Andy. You know, there is no forgiveness for him. He said, we cannot forgive the Germans for what they did during this era. He never wanted to buy any German product, not a washing machine, you know, anything which is made in Germany, we could not buy it, never. And we could never throw food away, okay? As children, we always had to finish whatever is in the plate, we must finish to eat it. Never throw away bread, for example. If a bread would stay, he would make croutons out of it, put it in the oven and make croutons. Nowadays, we buy those croutons in the supermarket. He would make it by himself at home. We never threw away any food. Okay, but he was a very happy person. As a survivor, you know, many of them were very, very sad. He was a very happy person. Whenever we had like a wedding in the family or a bar mitzvah, he was the one always standing in front of the family and greeting everyone in very warm greetings. Okay.
So my follow-on question, Menachem, and don't take this in the wrong context, but
Sure.
so you have your family now.
Yes.
How do you pass that attitude on to the next generations? And this is really important from my point of view. How do you pass those feelings which were so insular and so meaningful to the individual, and what your father and his generation and his friends and family were living through? How do you pass that on to your children, your grandchildren, because that will pass on to their generations beyond?
That's right. That's right. Okay. Well, you know, about the German products, I can tell you that my house is full of German products. Almost every, you know, the dishwasher, the washing machine, it's full of German products. But this is not the main issue. I can tell you that when we were in the Rustip in Belarus, and in one of the lectures which I gave there, by the way, I was speaking in English, and the English teacher of the school, she was translated it to Russian. in one of those lectures, the reporters, which were sitting in the front row, one of them wanted to ask a question, but not to me, to my son who was there, and he was only 13 years old. And he asked him, how do you feel in this road trip over here in Belarus? Where is the origin of your family? And he was only 13 years old. He thought for a moment, then he stood up and he said, first of all, I would like to say that I'm very proud to be the grandchild of Michael Etkin. And I am sure that one day, like my father is lecturing all over Israel and also worldwide, there will come a day that I will do it as well. And this for me, this is everything for me. I know that I inherited it to them, and this legacy will pass on my next generation to come.
That child has been well raised.
Thank you very much.
That's a fantastic comment, Menachem. Thank you so much.
Sure, you're welcome. Sure.
I think it's very important that we try to pass it on to the next generations, obviously for the obvious reasons of preventing it ever happening again. But a lot of people, if you study the Holocaust, sometimes it's just too unbelievable that people could do this. And one of the famous historians out there, she interviewed many of the top Nazis, and she coined the term, the banality of evil. These were not monsters. These were not, people, creatures. These were human beings that did this. These were educated people that did horrific things. And it's very important as the generations pass that is not forgotten. And the lessons are very clear that it could happen anytime to anyone.
Right, right. And now we see what's happening in Iran. Iran is developing nuclear weapons. They want to wipe out Israel.
That's right.
They're declaring it, that they want to wipe out Israel out of the map.
And they're serious.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Right.
Amazing.
Yep.
Hi, Menachem. It's your cousin from Toronto, Ariella.
Hi, Ariella. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Just
Great.
wanted to say how amazing the story was. To let all the people on Zoom know how special Menachem is.
Thank
From
you
all
very much.
cousins or cousins. He's the glue who keeps the family together.
Thank you very much, Ariella, for this comment.
And we come from a very big family on my father's side. And so this is just one example
Right.
of how special he is.
So as you can see, we have people on this call from Canada. Ariella is from Canada. We have people from Israel and from the UK and from both coasts of the US, the East Coast and the West Coast. It's great.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
I really want to thank you very much for taking the time to be with me here and for listening. Yeah.
We are so proud and so honored and blessed to have you. Emily is our resident historian. That she is a really amazing person, and she's done some really great work. And she's written a book on the resistance, the German resistance, the White Rose. And she gives me a lot of comfort knowing that there are still young people out there that do care and are very interested and want to continue to tell the stories. And Emily's the one that really made this possible. When she suggested this, we were like, are you kidding me? Absolutely, we're going to do this. And we hope to do more in the future with you as well, Menachem. We're blessed to know you.
Great. Emily, you are great. And Emily, I would like everyone to know that Emily wrote a very, very wonderful script about my father's life and my grandmother, Eva, about her life. And it's now in the, how do you call it, Emily? The community, the Jewish Partisans community, right?
Yes, the Jewish Partisan Community website. We have both Eva and Michael's stories on there, which I will send a document to everyone so you can go read further on their amazing stories. Thank you so much, Menachem, for sharing.
Yeah, can you put a link to that in the chat, or if you've got access to everyone who's signed into this, because I certainly love to.
Yes, I will send a follow-up email with all the information.
Great. Thanks a lot, Emily.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Sure. You're
I just
welcome.
want to say,
My
Menachem, one
pleasure.
final comment from me. I love the fact that you've got a London bus behind you. It's
Right. I'm sitting in my son's room. This is my son's room.
You're making me feel at home.
Great. Great. We love London. We made a trip to London last year and it was a lovely trip. Yeah.
Well, I look forward to welcoming you back here.
Sure, Andy. The next time I'm in London, we will have dinner together.
That's a promise to both of
Great.
us.
Great.
And again, we look forward to someday when you can come to our museum in Pennsylvania. We'll make a whole weekend of it.
Sure. Sure. I'll be glad to. Thank you very much, Steve.
Wonderful.
Great.
We're proud to know you. And like I said, please keep doing what you're doing. And we're going to keep doing what we do on our end to continue that these people will never be forgotten. I mean, Ava is an amazing woman. When you look at the photographs of her, you can see she has a fashion sense. You can see in her eyes, she was an amazing woman.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
We'll never let her be forgotten. You can count on it.
Thank you very, very much.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Enoch, and this is Dan Counts from Gilton High School teaching.
Yes. Yeah.
Hey, I have to get going. I have another meeting that I got to get to. I really
Okay.
appreciate your story and your will and your determination to pass this on, and I'm going to do the best that I can do to spread this information as well. My students really appreciated it. I'd like to have you every day because it was absolutely silence and paying attention. Got a great group of kids, and I know they appreciate what you are and what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you very